Sandbox is a fancy tech company. We see Han Ji-pyong talking to his AI buddy Young Sil after some flashy stuff outside. But this AI isn't very reliable. Ji-pyong is getting ready for his big day. Meanwhile, Won In-ja lands in Korea for her own meeting. She's a spokesperson for a startup relay lecture. During the lecture, the audience asks tough questions. In-jae stays calm, impresses everyone with her cool attitude, and even indirectly calls a guy a scumbag. Dalmi takes the mic and directly asks In-jae if she's ever made selfish decisions. Then we go back 15 years to see Dalmi and In-jae in the same room. Their parents argue, Dalmi watches from afar, and In-jae isolates herself. They ask their grandmother if she'll live with them, but she refuses because they argue too much. Surprisingly, shy Ji-pyong is there too. They meet near the grandmother's food truck and go to greet their father at work. In the office, they witness the boss beating him down. When Chun-myung returns home, the mother asks the kids who they want to live with. This is when the siblings are separated, and they end up with different last names. Now we see Ji-pyong's perspective. After winning a virtual investment competition, he looks for a place to stay. Broke and desperate, he meets a kind old lady who turns out to be In-jae and Dalsai's grandmother. She gives him a place to stay. Instead of taking a container full of money, Ji-pyong helps the lady put it in a bank. She trusts him, and this gives him the motivation to make a name for himself and learn about investments. This brings us back to the current events with the two girls. Dalmi rushes to her grandmother with bad news. In-jae left with her mom while Dalmi decided to stay with her father. Ji-pyong watches from afar and overhears their conversation. Later that night, she asks Ji-pyong to write a letter for Dalmi, pretending to be her friend Nam Do-san. They want to remind Dalmi that she's not alone. Dalmi quickly goes home and shows the letter to her dad. They read it together. But Chun-myung, her dad, is doubtful. He gives the letter to his mom, thanking her for cheering up Dalmi. He promises to bring their family back together and works really hard. He asks for a year. In the future, we see Chun-myung presenting his idea for a new website. A year passes and Dalmi keeps sending messages to Ji-pyong. But In-jae is back in town. Their mom married again and is moving to the US. The new guy is rich, but Dalmi isn't happy. In-jae is different now, less patient with her dad, and thinks Dalmi made the wrong choice. As In-jae walks away, she reminds Dalmi that her name is Won, not Se. In the present, the sisters meet again, but they're not very friendly. They tease each other about their lives. Dalmi lies, saying she has a partner, her grandmother. Quick on her feet, she says it's Nam Do-san. Turns out, Dalmi has been talking to him for 10 years. As In-jae leaves, she gives a sort of compliment, saying she showed Dalmi a better life. Dalmi gets upset about the marker on her shoes and stands in front of In-jae's car. To prove her wrong, Dalmi promises to go to the networking event with her pen pal. But across the street, Ji-pyong sees Dalmi upset at the bus stop. He decides to follow her from a distance to make sure she's okay. Dalmi goes back to work with her grandmother and starts asking about Do-san. She wants to meet him, even if it's just for one day, to prove her sister wrong. Going back in time, Ji-pyong looks for a new place to stay. Meanwhile, Dalmi's grandmother goes to the bank to take out 8 million won. Thanks to Ji-pyong's stocks and trading, it's now closer to 80 million. Deciding to withdraw all the funds, Ji-pyong checks the account and finds everything gone. From across the street, he sees the grandmother giving Chun-myung an investment for his new company. Chun-myung rushes to catch the bus but gets hit by a car. Despite blood on his face, he makes it to the meeting for Battle.com. The investors like the idea, but since there's no profit, it seems like a failure. Eventually, he can take a chance and invest in him. Ji-pyong is angry with the grandmother for taking his money. He decides to leave, demanding his earnings back. It turns out the money she gave Chun-myung was hers, not Ji-pyong's. Shocked, he quietly says goodbye and heads to the station. Dalmi's grandmother brings Ji-pyong his shoes and changes them. She promises to support him during tough times but asks him not to call if he succeeds. He says goodbye to Ms. Choi, hugs the grandmother, and hurries onto the bus. Chun-myung shares the good news with Dalmi, who believes he'll be successful. They talk on the phone and she asks for fried chicken, expressing her love. Leaving the meeting, Chun-myung talks to the investor in the elevator. They discuss the pressure of the job and the origin of the company name Sandbox, which symbolizes getting back up after a fall, like Dalmi did when she fell off a swing. On the bus, Chun-myung seems unwell, possibly having a stroke. He holds a bag of fried chicken, but no one notices he's passed out, presumably from blood loss. A teardrop falls from his face, and the text suggests he's dead. Before Dalmi learns the news, she sends a final letter to Do-san, saying goodbye and thanking him. A pink cherry blossom petal blows in the wind. It reaches a grown-up Ji-pyong, who approaches Dalmi's grandmother. They embrace warmly and Ji-pyong is okay. Following the cherry blossom, we see Samsung tech workers, led by the real Nam Doosan, making a breakthrough with their technology. Ji Pyeong sits with Won Deok, bragging about the money he made, but she catches him off guard by asking about his love life. He changes the subject, saying he's not married and promises to pay her back with interest. She tears up his business card and tells him to leave, happy that he's doing well. Dalmi is determined to find the real Doosan. She looks through newspapers, but her grandmother tries to discourage her, saying Doosan might have lost interest. Despite the sibling rivalry and to make her dad happy, Dalmi wants to show NJ that she can be successful, even if just for one day. At work, Dong Chien is scolded by Ji Pyeong until Won Deok shows up with a bag of corn dogs. She asks him to help find the real Doosan so Dalmi can impress at the upcoming meeting. Ji Pyeong reluctantly agrees and has only 5 days to do it. As the days pass, we see a split-screen shot comparing NJ's luxurious day to Dalmi's modest life. NJ enjoys a fancy restaurant, asking her mother to attend the meeting with her. Meanwhile, Dalmi works at a busy coffee shop, managing the crowd by playing K-pop and asking them to line up. She organizes the workers and takes care of all the orders, impressing the crowd. They also break the sales record, making 10 million won in one day. Ji Pyeong asks Dong Chien to find Doosan. He tracks down a phone number and Ji Pyeong rushes out to find him. Doosan is with the Samsung tech boys in a makeshift office after hours. They're not supposed to be there, and Doosan's parents find out. They have to explain how they spent their investment on a fancy coffee machine with little progress. Chol-san excitedly mentions entering a CODA competition, like the AI Olympics. This matches the image recognition software from the last episode. Doosan's parents are impressed until the AI registers Doosan's father as a toilet. Upset, he chases Doosan outside, and they circle Ji Pyeong's car. Ji Pyeong has seen enough and reports back to Won Deok. Dalmi finds Doosan online selling a baseball. She calls Won Deok and says she's meeting Doosan later that day. When Ji Pyeong learns this, he's shocked. Amid back-and-forth messages, Dalmi tells Doosan she missed him, and he's understandably confused. He makes it to the meeting point, where the boys quickly disperse so Doosan can make the exchange. Nervous, Dalmi locks eyes with Doosan, but Ji Pyeong shows up and takes him away, explaining everything to him. Ji Pyeong opens his car's glove box and explains the deal with the letters, asking Doosan to read them. Meanwhile, Dalmi learns she won't be a permanent employee despite proving herself at work. Ji Pyeong tries to convince Doosan to pretend to be in love with Dalmi. However, Doosan wants an investment and also wants to be part of Sandbox. Ji Pyeong warns them about the challenges of startup companies, but Doosan pushes it out of his mind. Dalmi and Doosan both feel disappointed and head home. On the big day, Doosan is not there, but Dalmi decides to show up in an elegant suit. Won Deok encourages her, calling her a cosmos flower and advising patience. Doosan decides to meet Dalmi after all, dressed up in a suit with a fancy haircut. Ji Pyeong also shows up in a white suit and spots Dalmi across the room. As the lights go out, Doosan arrives looking suave. He greets Dalmi, trying to act calm, and she tells him she missed him. Ji Pyeong watches from afar. In the end, the CODA company discusses the Samsung tech boys and their chances of winning the competition. With the highest score, their lives are about to change. Inja and her mother tell him to pretend to be fully in love with Dalmi. Dalmi introduces Doosan as her boyfriend, and they try to act cool. Inja brings up the company proposal, and Doosan hands over his retro business card for Samsung Tech. Injo catches Doosan off guard by asking about funding rounds. Luckily, Ji Pyeong shows up and saves them from embarrassment. He introduces himself to Dalmi and the others. Ji Pyeong tells Doosan who Inja is while she watches them, clearly interested. Ji Pyeong advises Doosan to use big expressions and talk deeply, even saying the lyrics to the national anthem. It's a funny scene, especially when Ji Pyeong encourages Doosan to drive Dalmi home. Outside, Inja watches as her mother hugs Dalmi. She tells her mother she's grateful for her choice of picking her father and promises her life will get better. She admits to not being as successful as Inja right now, but believes she will be in 3 years. She wants to reach Zuckerberg's level, but her mother warns her about extravagant thinking, saying she may end up on her father's level with no plan. This hurts Dalmi and she walks away, getting a ride home from Doosan. However, he's still figuring out how to use the car. Ji Pyeong hails a cab to follow them, especially seeing Dalmi crying. As they drive over a bridge, they all watch a gorgeous firework display, though Doosan should probably focus on the road. Back at the networking party, Inja learns the party wasn't for her, but for her stepfather Doojung's secretary, Sang-soo. He wants to broaden his horizons, and Inja has to comply with her father's wishes. Meanwhile, Pyeong finds his car abandoned and Dalmi and Doosan are eating takeout by the shore. Pyeong hides and encourages Doosan to finish the date and go home. Dalmi suspects he has a girlfriend, which isn't true, but Doosan eventually leaves. On the way, he reconsiders and asks Dalmi about the music box, confirming he doesn't have a girlfriend. Doosan goes home with Pyeong, who is upset by Doosan's continuing interest in Dalmi. However, she messages first, causing a conundrum. Doosan initially writes lol and fried chicken, but Pyeong steers him to a more romantic response. Dalmi is ecstatic with the reply, calling Doosan an angel. Pyeong is unsure, especially when he sees Won-deok. He calls Doosan a robot and admits Dalmi will be disappointed. Won-deok thanks him for helping set this up and promises to tell Dalmi the truth. Dalmi returns to work and makes a bold decision to leave completely. Her boss is stunned, but she walks out with her head held high. Pyeong receives another message from Doosan needing urgent help. Dalmi is on her way to his office. Despite Doosan being there with her friends, Pyeong senses trouble and decides to set up their stuff inside his office to continue the charade. Dalmi hands over the money tree and follows Pyeong's gestures to thank the girl. She admits she's there to follow in his footsteps and has quit her job, intending to start a company like he did, using his inspiring story as a platform. Pyeong feels the situation is getting worse, and In-jae also leaves her company. Doo-jung plans to go to the US, but she changes her mind and shows up at the office. She decides not to go and suggests that Sang-soo should go instead. In-jae gets a makeover for a fresh start at Sandbox, where Dalmi also arrives with the same intention. At the office, Doosan and the others learn they've won the competition and made it into Kyodae. Doosan proudly shows Pyeong the confirmation on his phone, making a heart symbol with his thumb and finger. The central trio arrives at Sandbox, ready to give their best in startup companies. They fill out the wish board, stating why they want to do this. Pyeong arrives, pins up his wish, and asks to become one of the teachers. Someone has left a note expressing a desire for revenge. Could it be In-jae? As the Samson boys think about working with Pyeong, he talks to Won-deok, encouraging her not to tell the truth to Dalmi for now. She questions his interest and protective feelings for Dalmi, but he refuses to admit the truth. Won-deok asks if he really likes her, and after a pause, he admits that he doesn't. In the epilogue, Doosan's family gathers after the CODA broadcast. They announce Doosan as the winner, but his recorded message is eccentric and not what they agreed to. The edited video turns out to be a massive sabotage, and while Doosan is embarrassed, Kyodae is impressed, calling the video amazing.